blasting offensive music from a stereo. One boy threw a beer can in John's face, demanding he say, "I love racism." After he refused to say it, they became enraged. The group brutally attacked him, punching and kicking him as they laughed. They threw beer cans at his head, burned him with a flaming stick, and destroyed his belongings, even setting fire to the tent he shared with Christian. Throughout the night, the group taunted him, pretending to apologize and offering beer, only to hurt him again. Eventually, they pushed him into the lake. Desperate, he tried to swim away, but two attackers circled to the other side to block his escape. They threatened to harm Christian if John didn't return, forcing him to swim back to protect his friend. Once back on shore, the group resumed their assault, hitting him until he lost consciousness. Finally, they rolled him into the lake, where he tragically drowned. Daniel Hansen, Mikael Fjellholm, and two other attackers, whose names were withheld due to privacy laws, were all sentenced to several years in prison for their horrific crime. In 1987, a couple awoke to find a masked man standing at the foot of their bed. Calm and collected, he reached into his duffel bag and pulled out 4 pairs of handcuffs, then ordered them to lie on their stomachs and restrain both their wrists and ankles. Once they were bound, the intruder left the room and walked down the hallway, where he gently woke their 7-year-old son and 11-year-old daughter. Escorting the children back to the master bedroom, he announced that this was just a robbery and began demanding clothes, money, and food. The parents had no choice but to comply. He taped their mouth shut and blindfolded the kids, before shoving the parents into their wardrobe and barricaded it with nearby furniture. In an unusual move, he used the family's bedroom phone to make a call, but investigators would later learn this was a carefully crafted distraction. The horror deepened when he took the daughter to another room and assaulted her. Afterwards, in a chillingly methodical act, he bathed her, scrubbing away any trace of evidence. With the crime complete, the intruder casually raided the family's leftovers, drank some milk, and disappeared into the night. This was only the beginning. The man would become known as Mr. Cruel, a figure linked to multiple attacks, all carried out with terrifying precision. Despite decades of investigation, the case remains cold.
In 1960, a mother woke up at midnight to her phone ringing. She hesitantly walked down the stairs and answered it, but there was only silence on the other end. And then after a few seconds, she heard a click in the dial tone. She was creeped out, but figured it was probably nothing, and decided to go back to bed. But just an hour later, she awoke once again to the sound of someone in her house. The only phone in the house was downstairs, but unfortunately, that seemed to be where the noises were coming from. Figuring that she had no other options, she turned the lights on and started to creep down the stairs, hoping to get to the phone and call the police. But before she could make it to the first floor, the light suddenly went out, and the noise seemed to stop. She bolted straight to the phone and picked up the receiver, just to realize that the phone line had been cut. And then a couple of seconds later, she noticed a silhouette of a short man running at her. Before she could react, he attacked her. He appeared to be wearing a leathery mask, an old musty overcoat, and nail-studded bracelets, which made the woman believe that his intentions were much worse than a simple robbery. She tried her absolute best to push and shove him away, but this only made the intruder fight back harder. But in the midst of the struggle, they heard another set of footsteps coming down the stairs and briefly paused. Once the intruder realized it was the mother's 14-year-old daughter, he threw the mother to the side and chased the daughter back up the stairs. The mother, realizing that now was her only chance to escape, sprinted out the front door into her neighbor's house for help. When they returned, they found the daughter had been assaulted, but was fortunately still alive. However, the intruder appeared to be long gone. Once the police arrived, they told the mother that she had been attacked by what the locals called the Beast of Jersey. He continued his attacks all the way up until 1970, when he was caught running a red light. They searched his house and found plans for future victims, a shrine dedicated to the devil, and a small library based on dark magic. Edward Paisnell was ultimately sentenced to 30 years, but got out after 20 for good behavior.
In 1991, 20-year-old Angela Hammond made a late-night call to her boyfriend from a payphone. There was nothing urgent. She just wanted to say goodnight, to hear his voice one last time before heading home. As they chatted casually, Angela mentioned a strange man nearby, standing next to a dirty green pickup truck circling the parking lot. She laughed it off at first, but then came the scream. Terrified, her boyfriend jumped into his car and raced toward the payphone. Just as he arrived, he saw the truck speeding off, with Angela inside, struggling in the back. He chased them down the road, desperate to save her. But then his car broke down. Helpless, he watched the truck disappear into the darkness, taking the woman he loved with it. He had been seconds away, seconds from rescuing her. And to this day, over 30 years later, Angela Hammond has never been found. The case remains unsolved, shrouded in mystery, fueled by theories and haunted by a single chilling truth. Someone out there knows what happened that night.
In 2016, a girl started up her computer and opened the Tor browser. Her plan was spine-chilling, yet simple. She was going to contract a hitman from the dark web. She was browsing for hours and finally stumbled across a site named Besa Mafia. They claimed to provide professionally trained hitmen in return for Bitcoin. On Valentine's Day, she sends an anonymous email to them using the username DogDayGod. In it, she discussed her intended victim, Amy Allwine. She told them, "That bitch has torn my family apart by sleeping with my husband, who then left me and is stealing clients from my business." She then sent a picture of Amy and completed the transaction by sending $6,000 in Bitcoin. The only problem was that the person who was looking to contract the hitman, who went by the alias DogDayGod, was actually no girl at all. She was really Stephen Allwine, the husband of the intended victim. Stephen set up this elaborate backstory and posed as a jealous woman in an effort to conceal his identity. And for a while, it worked perfectly. However, his plan would fall apart a few months later when an FBI agent knocked on their front door. He sat the couple down and stated that someone was trying to kill Amy. Apparently, an anonymous source on the dark web sent all of the Besa Mafia emails to the FBI. However, due to Stephen's elaborate planning, he wasn't considered a suspect at this time, since the FBI believed it was actually a woman who attempted the hiring. So after this botched attempt at murdering his wife, Stephen could have quit and simply divorced her. However, he decided to take an alternate route. Roughly 10 months after Stephen emailed Besa Mafia, he called 911. He told them that his wife had shot herself and he needed help right away. But when the police arrived, they noticed several red flags. For example, Amy was holding the weapon in her left hand, even though she was right-handed. She also had no powder burns on her hands or head. And there were indications that the scene had been cleaned and repositioned before their arrival. In the end, physical and digital evidence proved that Stephen was behind everything, and he was convicted of first-degree murder.